Hey, how you doing? I'm Dan Ferris.
I'm Michael Williamson.
Coming to you from Complete Media Incorporated, the finest marketing and advertising agency on the prairie. When last we spoke, we were talking about defining your target demographic and how you should certainly invest your marketing dollars there. We want to dig a little deeper on that and talk about, we run into a lot of instances where money is being invested in places that perhaps it shouldn't be. So in other words, today is all about putting your marketing money where the money is.
where it makes sense, and how you determine where it makes the most sense is through research and data collection and determining where that target audience consumes their media, the most time that they spend consuming that media and where it's at, right?
Yeah, and I know what's really happened in the past decade, that there are just so many more options to invest your marketing dollars that it does get confusing, it does get hazy. And let's be honest here. Most human beings will make a decision based on an emotion and then qualify that decision with the facts somewhere down the line.
No,
in fact, I hear, hey, so-and-so, and I know his brother, and he came in and he had this really great deal for, to be in his neighborhood magazine or whatever. And I thought, this was a favor, but, maybe not. The fact of the matter is, if you are spending marketing dollars in a place that aren't talking to your specific target, you simply need to stop.
Yeah, and that's a big part of what we do for our clients, is helping them to understand where their ideal target audience is consuming those messages. And like you said, there's so many more options today than there were 5, 10, 15 years ago. I won't go any further back than that, even though we have experience farther back than that. Well, it was much simpler back then, wasn't it?
Rule of thumb, and I had this conversation.
3 channels.
Yeah, just 1 week ago. A gentleman, a client of ours, very viable business, been doing business for, 12, 13 years now, and still investing, some of his money in the directories, which would be great if his target demographic was, say, 65 plus. But his target demographic, honestly, is about 25 to 45.
Right.
So the idea is, will you get some business out of that? Maybe, but could those same dollars be invested somewhere else that's going to be far more beneficial? And the answer was absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, the yellow pages are going the way of cassette decks and Pong. I mean, the yellow pages, it was funny because I did, to back up what you just said, I had a recent conversation with a client, and their demographic is largely a rural based population, and right now one part of their business is seeking to expand their footprint. West River, those of you who are in South Dakota know what I'm talking about, East River versus West River. So it's a whole different ball game out there, but they actually got a new bit of business, and I didn't want to ask, but I had to know the answer. Where did they find you? They found them in the yellow pages. But, again, it was somebody who doesn't have that traditional access to the types of media outlets that the rest of us do. So they still rely on those yellow pages. So, part of that conversation was, I said, how much are you spending on that particular medium? And do you think that you could greatly reduce that investment and still be in there? Because what they do is so exclusive, it's so unique, that they don't need to have even a banner ad or a full page ad or anything. Sure. They need a bold listing, because what they do is in their name. So, and anybody looking for what they have. So I didn't say quit spending money on the yellow pages, but let's reduce that investment, and I guarantee you those people, those unique individuals like that, will still find them. And they thought that made sense, and it does make sense. But really, in the more metropolitan area, I challenge anyone, walk the streets of Sioux Falls and walk up to anybody under the age of even 50, and out of 10 people, all but one will say that they even have a yellow pages sitting in their house.
And that's how it works. And ask yourself, if you are still, doing primarily the lion's share of your own marketing as a business owner, you're going to be inundated with media, and that's they're doing their job, and some can be really beneficial and some maybe not so much. But just really bear down and ask yourself when they say, for instance, well, geez, morning drive time on this radio station, we have an average quarterly cume of 4,000 or 10,000 or whatever it is. Numbers are great, but you need to ask yourself and ask them, yeah, well, who are they? How does that break out age-wise, gender-wise, and is your exact target demographic in there, and will it serve you well to actually invest there? It's not just about numbers. It has to be the right numbers for your product or service.
Well, and let's face it, nothing against those individuals, but their reality is one based in the fact that they need to solicit business because that's how they get paid. So obviously they're going to customize their message to resonate with the people that they're approaching. It doesn't mean that they're not being forthcoming. It's just that they're good at what they do, and they're going to manipulate that message so that they can close the sale. And at the end of the day, it's very unlikely that it's 100% of a guarantee that they have sold you a package or a situation that is perfect for your strategies for what you're trying to accomplish, and we really don't have that. We're not sitting here making a buck off of selling people traditional media. I mean, not that we don't bring that into the mix occasionally if it makes sense, but it's by no means one of our primary concerns. We're not going to get a commission if we sell a client a flight of ads on radio or TV. Again, if it makes sense, if we determine that if those mediums are going to hit that target audience, then great, we're all for it. Interestingly enough, I have a client that I have discovered over time that periodically I go, what are they doing? They're advertising there, or they're advertising. And so finally I asked him about it. And you know what his answer was as to ultimately why he made the decision to spend that ridiculous amount of money in those various areas that made no sense and do not in any way, shape, or form hit their target demographic. I'm just really bad at saying no.
Yeah, it's personality, it's emotion, it's pulling the trigger at that moment, and we certainly understand that. But again, it's business, it's your dollars. And again, any marketing dollar, should not be referred to as a cost. Well, my marketing advertising cost me this much. That needs to be turned around and looked at as an investment and what that investment is returning back to you, and to be able to really target that, really make that work for you. And now, at the end of any given year or quarter or however you process this, that if you invested this much, that you're pretty darn sure you got this much back.
Right. I mean, we often use the analogy, it's no different than if you were investing money with a financial planner, and over the period of time he's allocating your money in a particular stock or a financial option, and you look at it over time and you go, you know what, it's not performing. Would you continue, to do that if historically you're losing money or you're not making any money? It's no different. So we take that approach. If you're going to make that marketing investment, it needs to have a return.
Yeah, so again, ask yourself, bear down, who is I refer to it as your P1 client. Who is that perfect target demographic for your product and or service for what you do? And the marketing dollars you're investing, are they being put places where that person is going to see that, hear that, smell that, whatever, and react accordingly?
Hey, and we understand that if you're spending money, like when we first started this little broadcast about spending money with the Brothers publication or the neighborhood or your friends, advertising opportunity, and it's hard for you to walk that back, we understand. But the reality is, if you're throwing money at an emotional situation, that's not the reason to do it. And if you want us to be the bearers of bad news, Dan and I take great pleasure in telling people that they're no longer going to continue.
We enjoy bumming business owners out. It's what we do.
And we have no problem going to your brother-in-law who publishes that little directory that you're spending $500 a month on to say, you know what, Bob's not going to do this anymore. because it doesn't hit where he needs to hit. So, I mean, really, at the end of the day, that's all that matters.
Yeah, it's your marketing budget. We take that very seriously, and we know you do too. And hopefully, what we're laying out there is beneficial. That's all I've got, Michael.
You know what? That's all I have too.
That's the old proverbial wrap. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Again, I'm Dan Ferris.
I'm Michael Williamson.
See ya.